Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That was great. Alright, hello everyone and welcome today. I am SpraynPray1000 and today we are going to talk about, I should probably also mention this is another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdict, my video game review series where I review games. And today we're actually going to talk about a game I did not even plan on doing a verdict on, just because of the nature of the game. And really, I decided because, you know, I like to do verdicts. I like to do these series that I do. You know, I find them fun. I find them interesting. I find them different. But not only that, on top of that, I also really want to, you know, talk a little bit about this game. And the game I'll mention is TellTale Games' The Wolf Among Us. Okay. So the reason why I actually did not decide that I would do a verdict when this game came out is because this game is actually episodic. So this game has been coming out in this game in particular has 5 episodes that have been released since, I believe, October or November or December 2013. I forget when exactly. I think it was October 2013 when this game first came out. I didn't play it when it first came out. I picked it up later. I forget if it was money or if I just wasn't interested and I just wanted to try something out. I forget. I don't remember. I apologize. But I'm gonna talk about it. Because this verdict is gonna be a little bit different. Because usually when I do a verdict, oh, what do you have? Watch Dogs. You know, a $60 game that came out. Everything about the game is on the disc at launch, etc. That's it. It's done. Right? Like that's all I can say about Watch Dogs. With TellTale Games. See, this game is technically already finished. The whole game, you can buy it now for, I think, $25, $30, and you can play it start to finish because all 5 episodes are out. And I didn't want to flood the verdict with, you know, episodes like every couple of months. Like, for example, the verdict of the first episode actually would have been in last year's verdict sessions, right? So I think it makes more sense to review the game once it's done and finished, you know, rather than to review every episode and just kind of say, you know, yeah, every episode is, you know, this episode was great. Episode 2 was horrible. My computer just had a pop-up. And stuff like that. So, I'm gonna be reviewing it, you know, not in terms of every episode, like, was this episode good or was it bad? Because, truthfully, if you're really gonna get into it, if you have a bad, like, even if an episode was horrible, which I'm gonna get to, you know, the game in a minute, I'll talk about it. Even if the episode was horrible, you know, it's not like you can just skip over the episode, I don't think, because you need to make choices in the, you know, the previous episodes that affect the current and future episodes. So, the problem here is that I don't know, you know, obviously, like, if let's say episode 3 is horrible, like, I'm not going to tell you to skip it because, again, like, then if you want to keep playing, like, if you want to quit, that's one thing, but if you want to keep playing, you can't just skip episode 3, I don't think. I think at that point the game will auto-generate choices for you, which, do you really want that? You know what I mean? But I digress. Let's talk about what The Wolf Among Us is. The Wolf Among Us is another TellTale Games game, and in case you don't know, these are the same people that have done Back to the Future, the video game. I think that was one of their first games. That's the earliest game I can remember for them. They have done Walking Dead. That's their most famous one. 2012's The Walking Dead, a TellTale Games series. That everyone knows about that game now. That was their big explosion game, right? And they also did Jurassic Park, which is the game that they never like to talk about again because it wasn't that good, but it was still funny. It was still worth the playthrough. So The Wolf Among Us is not the latest, but it's one of their newer games at this point. It's not the latest because they're doing something else now. They're doing Walking Dead Season 2 and they have other stuff planned. But it's one of their newer games. It just pretty much concluded this week, actually. It concluded last Wednesday. Today is now Saturday. I played it Friday evening to Saturday night. And like all the other TellTale games, it doesn't really feature original works. TellTale Games doesn't feature like original characters or anything. What TellTale Games does is they acquire licenses from other various what do you call them? Other various companies and works of art, and they make original stories about them. So, for example, The Walking Dead. Obviously, TellTale Games did not make The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was a comic book line and a TV. Now it's famous because it's a TV series, and they made a game about it. But the game it had some stuff to do with the TV series. Like I think there were some characters shared, some commonplaces, but for the most part, the game has spiraled off into its own mythos, its own universe that I believe is canon within the Walking Dead universe. I think. I'm not sure. I'd have to check. But it definitely fits in the universe. Like, it feels like a part of the universe. It almost feels like it could be, part like a show, if they wanted to put in the effort for it. And, same thing with Back to the Future. I didn't play that one, but I heard it was pretty much, its own unique story. And again, even if I did play it, I've never seen the movies, which I probably should. I should probably see the Back to the Future movies because I've heard that they're pretty good and they're pretty well known. And I should probably do that now that I think about it. And the same thing with Jurassic Park. And in fact, I can actually speak from unique experience because I've seen a lot of people have seen Jurassic Park, but I remember it distinctly because it was one of the founding moments of my childhood. There's parts in Jurassic Park, it's its own story. It's set during the first Jurassic Park, but it does at several points interlace itself and weave itself into the original game story. There's characters that are shared, places that are shared, etc., etc. And while the game is pretty sloppily done and, whatever, it's still funny. Like, for the comedic value, that game was really funny. Anyway. So that's basically The Walking Dead, okay? And Jurassic Park, etc., etc. So this time in The Wolf Among Us, TellTale Games has gone about making a unique story based off of a comic book line, kind of what they typically do. And this time around, it's a series called Fables. It's a comic book series published, and I've never heard of Fables prior to this. I'm not a comic book guy, so that's kind of understandable, I feel, because none of my friends are comic book people. Comic books are kind of, I don't want to say dying, but they're not as prevalent, I guess, as they were, 10, 20 years ago, just simply because of, everything is changing in technology, and even stuff when I was a kid that was prevalent, doesn't exist. Like, who even uses videotapes anymore? No one. Even DVDs are getting phased out. So, things have changed, but it's based off a comic book line. And at first, I was kind of like, I didn't know what to expect from it. I knew what TellTale Games typically does, and let me just tell you something. This is honestly my favorite work by TellTale Games. Each time they make something, I really enjoy it. And although I like Walking Dead Season 2, I think that The Wolf Among Us, for what it is and what it does, and just how the way the story unfolds, is basically my favorite. It's the one I like the best. So let me talk about it after that long introduction that could have probably been shorter. The Wolf Among Us stars Bigby Wolf, or typically the Big Bad Wolf, and a bunch of other fables, or basically characters from the classics children's tales. Well, I say children's tales because that's what they're famous for right about now, like the Big Bad Wolf and whatnot, Little Red Riding Hood, the Little Mermaid, all these other various stories. You'll recognize some of these characters if, as a kid you were exposed to them a lot. I wasn't too exposed, but I recognized some of them, and others I hit or miss, whatever. And basically, in this universe, it's not a kid-friendly game, okay? In this universe, there's a lot of cursing, there's a lot of swearing, blood, violence, horrible themes, as these fables who have basically been kicked out of their land have moved into New York City, and specifically I think they're living in like the Bronx and some of Manhattan, and basically they have to find their way in the big city where all the lines get blurred, everything bad that could go wrong goes wrong. They get involved in, real world horrible things and real world issues, and quite frankly, it's interesting to see, all these different characters, how they interact and how they've made do. So for example, if you're familiar with the tale of Little Red Riding Hood, or the three pigs building the houses, I forget what the name of it was. I think it was the Three Little Pigs, right? You'll recognize the Big Bad Wolf. He's this guy, he's a wolf, and there's a dozen different versions of the story. There's some that are censored, some that are not. And basically, Bigby is the Big Bad Wolf. and he takes on a human appearance, as do most of the other Fables, using something called glamour, which allows them to mask their identity from the humans so the humans don't go crazy. Oh, it's the big bad wolf, to keep it under wraps while they, live and walk alongside of them. And Bigby has been turned into the sheriff of Fabletown, this community of these fables living in what is the place? Living in the Bronx, excuse me. My brain stopped working for a second. And basically, as the sheriff, he has to investigate all disputes, all crimes, and everything. And let's just say that the inhabitants of Fabletown are a little bit less friendly than you would like to think. You know what I mean? And like all TellTale games, the story is very, very choice-driven. And there's a lot of dialogue options. There's a lot of options that, Bigby can take during the story that can really affect, the flow and even, what characters think, what they do. And that's really the hook about it. There's always something about that like that in The Walking Dead. And if you played a TellTale game before, you'll pretty much grasp the basics of it. All that'll be really new is like the story and the visual style. So I'm going to get to all that individually, okay? Because on all fronts, The Wolf Among Us really does a good job with that. So the story basically goes that Bigby has to investigate the death of a bunch of prostitutes who are dying, and basically horrible things are happening to them. They're being beheaded and everything. And there's clues and whatnot. And he has to figure out who's responsible and bring them to justice. So that's basically where the story goes from. I don't want to actually, obviously I don't want to spoil the game for you, because then, the game is mostly story-based. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, even if you didn't watch the playthrough. So that way you want to see what happens. If you want to see what I did, the playthrough's there. I have all 5 episodes. They'll be up. Well, episode 5 will be up. I'm recording this right after finishing it. And for the most part, I really like the story. Obviously, I don't want to say too much about it, but I really like the flow of it. Obviously, TellTale has really mastered the hook, that keeps you wanting to play the next episode. And basically, every episode kind of, left me satisfied. I really enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun playing it. So, Wolf Among Us, I think, definitely was really good. The story was interesting. And I really like the character of Bigby. I like a lot of the characters. And unfortunately, there's always a couple of flubs that happen along the way. Like, sometimes you might mean something, but obviously, since you're limited to 4 choices, you go with the best option that's not really what you kind of imply and what you really mean to say and whatnot. And, silly stuff like that has been around since Walking Dead and Jurassic Park. So there are a few hit or miss things here or there, but the story is really, really enjoyable. Like, those hit or miss things are very few and far between. If you really enjoy the first episode, I think you're really going to enjoy, obviously you're going to enjoy the rest of it, because it just gets more deep and complicated from there. And there's no real perfect route, because the world is very gritty and, features a lot of, unfortunately, bad themes that kind of haunt the Fables. Whether it be living a life of luxury blind to the consequences, or, what is right, destroying an illusion, or letting people, basically let some people suffer at the expense of others. There's a lot of stuff that goes on here that Bigby has to sort out. And as him, you get to either be a tremendous dick, just hurting everyone you can, in some cases killing them, which can drastically affect the story, or in other cases, you could be try to be the best guy, or you could be neutral, or you could flip-flop. It's all up to you. At any point, the choices are there for you. Now, the gameplay is, unfortunately, pretty much similar to, the typical TellTale game gameplay. Basically, as Bigby, Bigby can transform into his true wolf form. Although, for the most part, in combat, he typically tries to stay somewhat human, although he does occasionally, transform halfway to get some of the abilities of being a wolf. And, as him, you basically do your fighting. So, for the fighting is quick time events. It's basically button pushes, or maybe stick movements, or mash, mash X to hold this person down, or stop them from hitting you or something, and then press a button to counter or something. And it's pretty much follow the instructions on the screen. Pretty simple stuff, nothing like drastically complex. And the game is, for the most part, on rails, although at some points they do let you like move around an area, find different evidence or find different items, which then can be presented during dialogue, which can affect dialogue. You can, and again, it's all up to your perception of things, okay? So for example, you might be interrogating a suspect or interrogating someone, and there's clues around the room, and obviously if you don't look at any of the clues, Bigby won't have anything to say when he goes to talk to this person. But if you look at the clues, you interpret them, you think about it, you understand, what actually might have really happened here, and this person is lying, you can call them out on it, and, that could change the story. You might get a different response from people. Or if you don't realize it in time, because all the choices, dialogue choices are timed, like real-time stuff, you have to make decisions on the fly. Sometimes you might not be able to pinpoint stuff out, and that could also change the story. Again, as I said, everything you do with all these people changes the story. So you start from the same base, but definitely depending on who you are as a person and what you want to do, you could be drastically different from me. You could be the same as me. We could differ on some. It depends, and that's really the cool thing that they do with this game. In fact, they actually show you what other people, what percentage of other players connected to whatever service you're using have made certain choices. So for example, oh, did you kill so-and-so? And it might be 40% did and 60% let him live. Or did you give so-and-so, money or whatever? And again, it might be 20% didn't and, however many did. That's the cool thing about it. It's a cool community issue. And definitely I will say that I did like the gameplay. As always, TellTale game. Even though it's simple, it's fulfilling. And I like that. I like the story, but really the main meat is the story, right? Like, quick time events are not anything, at this point, they're not really that big of a deal. We've all played games with quick time events in them, and you can screw up some, but you can't screw up too many. So we've all played that, It's nothing groundbreaking or earth-shattering, but it does help keep, prevent it from just being, oh, dialogue choice, dialogue choice, dialogue choice, walk around a bit, dialogue choice. So they do try and mix it up, and it is kind of cool to see some of the fights between the different characters. Lastly, the presentation. Okay, the one flaw I have with the presentation is that, like The Walking Dead, like all these other games, TellTale Games, for whatever reason, the games just really, sometimes they're very slow with loading, which is just, it's a little bit disappointing. I mean, it's not like super annoying. Once the scene gets going, like, it really has no problem. There's some awkward cuts between some of the scenes because obviously the game has to load the next thing, but the initial loading of the scene is from, in my experience, the worst part about it. Some scenes load instantly, like, okay, 5 seconds of waiting, there you go, bam, on to the next thing. Other scenes are kind of like, you're sitting there a little bit. It depends on the episode, and, it depends, I guess, how well patched out everything is and whatnot. So it really depends on your experience. Again, that's up to, whoever's playing the game. And, it is what it is. But once the game gets going, thankfully, it's not that bad. So the next thing I want to say is that was like the one bad thing, right? Next thing I want to say is definitely that I like the graphical design. I like the display of this game. I liked it from the instant I started playing. It really, in this game they use sort of, I don't want to say noir style, but they definitely use, like, a lot of colors. Like, they don't hold back on the colors. Like, for a gritty game, a game that features a lot of colorful characters portrayed in, very negative, very dark lights, I will say that The Wolf Among Us definitely, they definitely really did something with the art style that is really great. Like, we all know that The Walking Dead and Jurassic Park kind of look like comic books come to life, especially with the animation style. The edges of people look very hand-drawn. And that's really the cool thing. It's kind of like the Western equivalent of what Namco Bandai does with all their anime games. You know what I mean? If you ever seen Naruto or Dragon Ball, how they basically make it look like an anime come to life in 3D. They do the same thing here with comic style, and The Wolf Among Us really looks great. I really like the darkness and how the colors contrast with that, to just give a very, very ominous, like, gloom-filled atmosphere as a backdrop to the story. I really like that a lot about it. Okay, and the other thing I will say is that the music really is good. I have actually a friend that's playing this. It's Voltweller. You know him if you've been watching my podcast and some of the videos I've been making. he's playing it too. He likes TellTale Games, and he really loves this. He really likes this game. He actually played Crywolf before me, and he said that you're really gonna love this episode. And we really enjoyed it. I really like the art style, the story, the music. Those are all on the up and up. Those three are like the pinnacle. Like the presentation of the game, it looks great, sounds great, and has a great, interesting story. And really, it's something that I really enjoyed. The gameplay is the typical stuff. It's pretty cool because the character is not like a human. Who can only do so much, and in the case of most of these games is on the defensive, trying to run away from the dinosaurs or the zombies or whatever. In this case, you actually are a supernatural character. You can do cool stuff with that, and I mean, yeah, it's scripted, and stuff like that, but at least it's a little bit better than Walking Dead. You know what I mean? Where if you got bit by a zombie, that's the end of it, or you got killed by a dinosaur, that's the end of it. It's a bit better than that, I feel. So that's on the up and up, but it's nothing like to write home about. And the loading times, etc., are kind of whatever. But definitely, I really think that this is a really good experience. I really enjoyed The Wolf Among Us, and I want to see if they'll make a season 2 for it. I mean, the way that they did try to do it, maybe they will, maybe they won't. That'll be interesting to see whether they do or don't want to. And I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting, but we'll see what they do with it. And I think that for the most part, TellTale Games really delivered with this one. This one, again, was one I was not expecting to be, too much. I didn't know anything about the source material. I didn't know, what to expect from it, and I was pretty surprised. I was pretty pleasantly surprised by it. It really hit home, and I really enjoyed it a lot. So ultimately, what am I going to give The Wolf Among Us? I am going to give The Wolf Among Us. Now, bear with me, because you got to remember, this game, it only costs about 25. If you buy the season pass, like 20 to 25 to 30 bucks, and you got to remember, it's episodic content, so it's not your typical game, which is typically, you bought it 60 bucks, you play it from start to finish, no problem. This game sort of has like 5 individual chunks that you then, that's you and that's what you want to play. The good news is it is available for a lot of different consoles, I believe. I know The Walking Dead is on something like 5 or so consoles, including iOS and tablets. So I'm not sure what this is actually on. I want to check just to make sure. It is actually on a lot of consoles. It is on Windows 360, Mac, PlayStation 3, iOS, Vita, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. That's right. I think that The Walking Dead, and I think that the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One's versions are going to have all the games on a disc. And same thing with Wolf Among Us, on PS3 and Xbox 360. So there's going to be retail editions if you don't want to individually download each, so you can wait out for that if you want. But reviewing this game is going to be a little bit awkward, because it's not like I can't really put it on the same scale as other games, just simply because it doesn't really have the same format as other games. So this is going to be a tentative review. Like, this is going to be something I'm going to say, like, it's definitely like a star next to it. Like, you got to understand that this game is different than the other games. But just generally speaking, like, I almost feel like I want to rate this out of 10, on a separate scale. But to put it in contrast with everything else, for the enjoyment factor, for everything about it, I think that The Wolf Among Us really is going to get an 88 from me. An 88, because it really does a lot of cool stuff. There are some parts, they're the typical whatever. But an 88 because it has this nice solid story that definitely will keep you gripped if you like interesting crime thriller stories. And I feel that, if you like Walking Dead, you should try this out, because I didn't personally, know anything about it. Same thing, the same way I didn't know anything about Walking Dead when I played that game. I came to really like it. The same thing happened again. So I'm interested. I want to actually hear what other people really think about this. What they think about The Wolf Among Us, and I really want to know what if people like it. If they played it and they don't like it, it's too stereotypical, or is it an interesting experience? I think the Telltale treatment really helps out a series like that, because it lets you look at old series in new lights, or it can really reinterpret stuff. It really helps out, and it makes it interesting for gamers to really get into stuff that really is non-gaming. I feel that's my opinion, though. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, so I'm probably going to wrap this up now. and I will not be using gameplay footage to show off this game in particular, because if I show you gameplay footage, it's going to really spoil probably the biggest part of this game, which is the story. So I'm not going to show any of that. Obviously, if you want to see gameplay footage, you know, I say do it at your own risk. You know, don't necessarily watch my videos, but do it at your own risk, because you're going to spoil what I consider to be the biggest part of this game. So this has been a different kind of verdict. 88 is good. 88 is fine in my book, man. They did a great job with this, and I want to see if there's a season 2. So I'm signing off now. I'm gonna go play something else, and you know, keep the gears rolling. This was a great way to end my slump. I'll say that. I'm really feeling energized after playing this game. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. So I'll talk to you guys later. SpraynPray1000 signing out.